All right, Regen Ray here from Farming Secrets and the Soil Learning Center. I'm excited to be joining you. It's another Friday weekly recap of Regen. I don't know what we're calling this show yet, but that's what I'm sticking with at the moment. So welcome to the show. I just wanted to give you the heads up that this week it has been a massive week in the world of Regen. I don't know what's happening around the world, and maybe you're just as confused as me, but we're going to give a little recap of the RCS conference that happened in Brisbane this week. We're going to talk about foot and mouth disease, of course. It's on top of everyone's mind here in the farming world. And then we're going to have a look at what's happening with the Dutch farmers and what's happening in Lanka. So big show, stick with me. We've got a lot to go through. Comment along the way. I'm curious to hear what everyone's thoughts are and what's happening in the wonderful world of Regen. Any articles I've missed, share them in the links below. Let's do this. So we've got a lot to cover off, but I want to start off with something positive because the RCS conference happened this week, and I'm going to share some of the photos that was really exciting. And if I can find all my bearings on this screen, let's see if I do this, share screen. Which one does it bring up? Yeah, there we go, Meta, me in me. Cool, let me close that. Probably don't want to show that. All right, so hopefully you're seeing the right screen. And so the Facebook post that RCS put up this week, just amazing. Over 600 people in the room talking about Regen and all things food, nutrition, health, soil, and just really amazing. Unfortunately, massive FOMO. I wasn't able to attend. That saddens me, but I got lots of learnings via osmosis with everyone sharing what was happening around. But look at all the people in the room. What an amazing photo. No credit to me. I didn't take any of these. There's Terry McCosker talking. Had the privilege of chatting to him on the podcast a few weeks ago, and his episode is up live on the Secrets of the Soil podcast. An amazing conversation, just full of wisdom. There's Charlie Massey presenting. These are just amazing photos. I don't know who the photographer is. They are noted in the post. The link is below if you want to go and have a look at this this post and just see the amazing amount of wisdom and knowledge that kind of happened on those. So if you're in the room, share along like what some of the key takeaways were from this event. And there's Dr. Zach Bush. So sad that I didn't get to see him. It's twice I've missed him over the few years. When he came to Melbourne, I was not available either a couple of years ago before the pandemic hit. And what an amazing conversation he now speaks of. And, you know, a lot of his work amplified by what has happened in the world of the pandemic. So amazing photos, some really good, you know, spirit, energy, and you can just kind of see that through the images and all these companies that we've had the ability to hang out with and work with in the past. And I've heard that it was recorded and streamed live. So let's make some noise and see if there is a replay version that RCS is able to release because of that. So really, really fun kind of event. And it's amazing. And when I spoke to Terry on the podcast, he mentioned that, you know, 10, 15, 20 years ago when they tried to run events like this, it started off in a barnyard with 20 or 30 people. And now there's over 600 people going into a conference center talking about the wonderful world of soil and regen and agriculture and making a positive impact to our planet. So congratulations to them and everyone who was there and was able to share in that moment. So let's switch gears to foot and mouth disease. Stuart Austin is doing an amazing work in being a spokesperson for this movement. His post, again, the link is in the video comments around. Highly encourage you to come and watch this video. It goes for, 5 minutes. I'll see if I can play a little snippet of it if I unmute
just
that.
Trying to consider also sending to the minister. It was a good webinar this evening by the NFF, and good to have the minister on there and a few others, and quite informative. There's a few things that we keep talking about that I just wanted to reiterate, I suppose. And the first one I think is around detection. And I don't think we'll ever find the first cow that has FMD. By the time we find it, we'll have hundreds of them.
And he's very right there. By the time it is found, there would be hundreds already in. And so we need to do everything in preventing rather than responding. And so he put some valid points here in regards to what can be done. And he's also written a letter, and he asks that if you want to message him, he will send you the template for you to then send off to the different ministers and people who are responsible in order to make this happen. He also did another interesting post just a couple of hours ago or 20 hours ago, but I saw it last night, and he's gone and looked at all the flights that are coming in from different parts of the world using databases that are public knowledge. And I also attended the Victorian Farmers Federation webinar a couple of weeks ago or last week. And what's happened is this map shows that Australia was protected by what used to be a grey belt across here. And so we were very far away from any known cases of foot and mouth disease. But now what's in red is basically zones that have been suspended from foot and mouth free status. So as you can see, it's very close to our borders. It doesn't take long for it to kind of reach there once that kind of barrier gets broken. It's really interesting to read some of the comments that people are narrating from these posts that I find really interesting. Some people are kind of feeling that maybe they want it to come here, which I think is very sad if there is like an agenda, but we're not here to chat about conspiracy theories. But it's just interesting to know what people's thoughts are when it comes to this, because people are kind of sick and tired that there are places and measures that we could do to prevent this, and yet we take a very slow, off the mark way of doing it. And that's kind of what's kind of got Charlie Arnott a little bit pissed off.
G'day, just wanted to add to the debate. Actually, it's pork products from China in Melbourne, in a retail situation in Melbourne. This is really serious shit. What I can't believe is that there seems to be some reticence or some delay or procrastination around whether it's a good idea to enforce some strict travel guidelines around people coming in and out of Indonesia to Australia. Stuart Austin put a fantastic video up, I think it was yesterday, making some good cases for just shutting the border basically and employing some very sound logical practices, biosecurity practices.
There you go. So that's Charlie Arnott, also not very happy. I don't think I put the link in the description for this one, but you can follow Charlie Arnott on Instagram, and he's got this 6-minute video, which is really interesting to, and even hear that, like people are just sitting on their hands, like why the delays, what's really confused, because this is a multi-billion-dollar kind of, here it is, $100 billion livestock industry could cause massive havoc if it hits. And I had a friend reach out to me on Instagram when I put a post the other day saying that she was in the UK when this happened not long ago, and it was just chaos, and from her point of view, she was just like saying, I wish all the very best that it doesn't come to Australia, because she's lived through seeing what it does to local economies and families and communities and everyone when something like this outbreaks. So it's a very interesting time in regards to that, and we need to be very cautious about what we're doing and, taking preventative measures. And even though there aren't legislations in place at the moment about what you must do, I think it's about doing what's the right thing to do. And if it means leaving shoes in other countries, or making sure that you're doing foot baths and so forth when you're coming through checkpoints, and also declaring things even if you don't know whether you should be declaring or not. Over declaring is probably better than under declaring, and that's kind of what Charlie was talking about is, and even Stuart Austin in his post is saying that, people who want to sneak something in are not going to necessarily declare it and hope that they don't get caught. So, it's not really good enough to say, just declare it, because often than not, that is where things fall apart. And then let's go across the world to the other side, where a lot of jump on YouTube. There's a link in the description of this video to send you here. Do your own research, see what you think of this. It's not getting much coverage on mainstream media, but there are a lot of farmers over in Dutch and the Netherlands in regards to protesting very strict changes in their growing abilities. This is an example of, putting boundaries in place too quickly, causing farmers to really be discomfort with the way that things just get kind of shut off. And I understand that we have a climate crisis at hand as well, but there is a progressive pathway to success, and turning things off overnight doesn't necessarily do the right thing. People's livelihoods are at stake, and there's just hundreds, if not thousands of videos. This has been going on for weeks now. And you see a lot of these videos a few days ago and 2 weeks ago. Not a lot of coverage on mainstream media, and I have to just sit here and scratch my head and wonder why. But people are not happy about doing things too quickly when there's no pathway to success, and what this looks like. And so supermarket shelves are empty because trucks and transport can't get through, and lots of farmers have gotten together. Watching some of these posts, the Netherlands is one of the largest exports to all its neighboring countries when it comes to fresh produce and livestock. And so making big changes doesn't just affect this economy, it kind of ripples right around their borders and around the world. And an example of what does happen when you shut off chemical usages and whatnot, and obviously we're big advocates here of reducing chemicals or zero inputs, but chemical and synthetic imports, but doing it too quickly in Sri Lanka, millions of farmers have, and civilization, everyone has gone to the streets, and they've actually overtaken the president's living quarters and kind of forced him out. And he's only mentioned today that he's willing to resign as a result of this. But, a couple of years ago, they decided to ban to meet, climate goals. And they're paying the price for it now, because 2 years later, there are like literally tea farmers who cannot yield 1 gram of anything because none of the crops are growing, because they've been so reliant on the chemical industry to feed their soils. There's just no life in the soil. So banning chemicals and stopping them from coming has caused a country like this to go into massive debt and crisis and basically collapse. And I don't know what to make of this. I'm just kind of the middle person, really just seeing this stuff hit my radar and going, what does this all mean when we see that 2 years after banning, synthetic inputs and to meet kind of, I think it was, they were trying to reduce their nitrate impacts and nitrogen. And so, when you've got a system that depends on these chemicals, turning it off overnight, and as we speak, when you move down the regenerative pathway, you can't do it cold turkey. The soils need to readjust. Farmers need to readjust their mindset, the way that they do things, their practices, their toolings, their machinery. There is a process to this pathway, and flicking a switch overnight just does not set anything up for success. And we're starting to see evidence of this. And this is why the farmers in the Dutch farmers and so forth are protesting, because they can see what happens when you turn things off overnight. And I'm all for meeting targets and reducing the climate crisis we have, but we need to be mindful of there's a proper way. And, people have been talking about this for decades. So why have we not listened sooner, and why are we putting, massive deadlines too quickly and causing massive chaos and collapse when it could all kind of somewhat be prevented? Now, I'm not in any position to make these kind of decisions or change our outcome. But there are so many people feeling that this is kind of an agenda. There's like a force kind of causing this to happen on purpose. And I see one of the comments that has come up on YouTube. The goal is to destroy all productive economics. And so I don't know what to make of that. Is there, I don't know, is there an agenda? Like, why do people feel that something's not quite right? And so I'm interested in your comments. Like, leave me messages, share some things. I don't necessarily want to make these all doom and gloom every week, but there's it's hard to see the see through a lot of the noise that's happening at the moment. So I'm just sharing these. The links are below. Feel free to go and make your own assumptions. Go do your own research. I guess that's always the biggest thing that you can do, and see what people are saying. And there are lots of talks of things not being quite right, even over in China. There's lots of little banks going kind of broke, and there's building companies not delivering on their homes and buildings that were promised to people, and so they're stopping paying their mortgage, which is causing banks to stop being able to function and basically freeze people's money. So there's a lot going on around the world, and it's there's a lot on YouTube, and I can't sit here and think, well, if it was misinformation or not quite accurate, their systems are very quick to turn all this stuff off. And as you could see before, there's just thousands and thousands of videos showing kind of what's happening around the world, and what it kind of looks like when you flick a switch and do things too quickly. We need to be mindful that ecosystems take time to recover and change. So yeah, a lot of things happening around the world. I'd love to hear what you're thinking about this. Where are you sitting with it? Are you a farmer or a grower who's kind of struggling with the idea of like what it means to reduce your inputs? At the Soil Learning Center and Farming Secrets, that's what we have been banging on for a very long time. We've got a whole hub here, Soil Learning Center, many courses and programs in regards to all things about natural healing and regeneration of the earth, whether it be, composting, whether it be, understanding how soil functions, whether it be just kind of like a boot camp to get you into the mood of understanding what soils are all about, whether it be getting a microscope or permaculture or, the foundations of like why soil exists. Lots of programs that we've been putting together for a very long time. And that's the reason why I started the podcast as well, because I wanted to have those deeper conversations with everyone and ask those questions. And so even the last podcast that we released this week is with a vegan regenerative farmer, and we explored what it's like to maybe, not have to slaughter animals. And, I sit on the fence of those type of topics because it's like I understand how animals play a big part in regenerating grasslands and healing the soil and adding compost and manure and then the dung beetles and the whole ecosystem of healing soil. But then at the same time, I think as a group of people, 7.8 billion people reducing their impact on all systems across the world, whether that be financial, the economics, whether that be our food system, buying consumer stuff, gadgets, gizmos, clothing, all the pressures that we put on with this more economy, we need to really chill out and slow things down, because it's been a few decades of maybe overconsumption, and we're now starting to push all the systems to the brink. And so I'm all for reductionism, I guess it's called, reducism, I'm not sure. And so, all these synthetic and the synthetic, fertilizers are reliant on oil industry. And so oil prices go up, fertilizers go up. And that's the number one reason why I'm hearing people come to the regenerative movement, is because it's costing them too much to put the inputs into their farm. And, so I'm not sure if that's the right motive, where it's like costs are too expensive, so I need to find an alternative. I think, it's really better if we find that alternative before. And that's, kudos to all the farmers who have been doing this for the last 10, 15 years, who now are kind of, originally called crazy. And now everyone's turning to them and saying, how did you do it? We need to learn quick, show us your way. And so there's lots of that in the Soil Learning Center and across the podcast. So hopefully we can add some value in regards to this narrative and get you kind of on your journey to regenerating your soils and your planet, and also your soul and your mind and your heart. Because I definitely think it starts at the human level. Like, we need to be regenerative humans before we can be regenerative farmers and growers. So lots of stuff happening around the world. I'm really curious to know what your thoughts are. Please comment below. Make sure that you're subscribing to our channel, hit the like button, and also hit the bell, because it really tells the algorithm that we're creating content that you're interested in. It tells me that you're interested in it as well. So be a supporter. And there's also a link to my Patreon in this video. So if you feel like you enjoy these videos for a small fee every month, you can help me make this content, especially the podcast. It's a lot of moving parts and a lot of passion to get that kind of going. And, I don't want to necessarily put sponsored ads in the middle of those podcasts, rather keep it from the community, by the community. So, love to know what your thoughts are in regards to that. And I think one of the things you can do is just really explore what this all means for everyone. I am often caught in conversations and everyone's like, okay, enough doom and gloom. And it's like, this isn't doom and gloom. It's happening right here around our world. So we need to give permission to allow these conversations to exist and not just keep shutting them off and sweeping them under the rug, because eventually, that rug's going to disappear, and we're going to go, oh my God, look at all this baggage that we didn't deal with, or maybe we didn't prevent, or we could have played a part in, working smarter rather than harder. So I encourage everyone to really have those conversations. If you follow me along the way, you know that I have my theory of coins have three sides: the heads, the tail, and then the most interesting part, which is the edge. And we really do need to explore all those edges at the moment in the world that we live in. And that is why, our last podcast was with Katie, because I really wanted to understand where it comes from. I did a course with Katie around regenerative agriculture and holistic management, and I could see that Katie wasn't comfortable with the way that animals were used as tools, and just even that wording, I'm not sure if I'm okay with it. It is true, but I think we could be a little bit more understanding that grasslands used to operate in a particular way when herd animals just moved around naturally, but now we're kind of pushing them through a system. And if we need to produce X amount of output, maybe we can reduce that to take the pressure off all these farmers. And maybe we're not going to get a choice. You know, as much as we don't want foot and mouth disease to get here in Australia, if it does, we're all going to have to get used to the new reality that there will be, you know, massive meat shortages and sky prices on top of what already is happening. So if you know anyone going to Bali or Indonesia, you know, make sure that they know about foot and mouth and that they're declaring certain things. I can't believe the amount of naiveness that is existing even up until today, where people just don't know what they don't know. And so if you know someone who is traveling and getting around, and I've, you know, reached out to a few of my friends who are there at the moment or about to head there, and just let them know that there are protocols and to prevent over responding, you know. So I think that's enough from me today. Thanks very much for those who are commenting along and watching the show live. I really, you know, love your support. We're streaming across 7 different platforms at the moment, so it doesn't matter where you're watching from. Hopefully those comments are feeding into my viewfinder. And if not, I'll go and check out all those after the video. And so what I learned last week is that I need to give a little buffer when I stop this and when it ends, because last week's video cut out a couple of seconds early, or maybe like 30 seconds early. So on that note, I'm going to just play some music and bop along. But until next time, get outside, get your hands dirty, and keep digging deeper into our wonderful world of soils. This is what I'm reading at the moment. Audio version. Woo!